Hello everyone, I am Charlie Tolhurst and welcome to the Charlie Tolhurst Show for today, the 18th of February. On a Friday, I'm doing my show tonight because this weekend I am going to be attending a major sporting event, which means I unfortunately will not have time to film tomorrow. So we're moving the show tonight, but there's still plenty of news to talk about. And I'm joined by Labour Party supporter Zach Chambers to run up all the latest news. Hello, Zach.
Hello, Charlie. Hello.
Now, there has been a couple of tweaks to my show regarding segments. So let's start off with the hot headlines, as always, because we are going to change the show up a little bit, focusing more on chat, and also a brand new segment coming on along later on called The Culture Wars, where we're going to be having a little take on cancel culture. Yes. It's going to be interesting. I'll talk about what's coming up later on in the show on that. But we're going to start, though, with Storm Eustace right now, because I just want to start off by talking about this very quickly, because as you'd have seen across much of the country, there has been heavy rain, and very, very extremely strong gusts of wind. I believe the highest ever recorded gust of 122 miles per hour hit the UK today. And Zach, the devastation that Storm Eustace has left behind has caused lots of damage across much of the UK.
Oh, yes, Charlie. Well, first of all, can I just say, I'm glad my house wasn't blown down today because, I felt that. Yeah, it was really bad, wasn't it, Charlie? I have to say, I don't know whether you were. You probably got a brunt of it as well, but it was very, very windy as well today. It really was. I'm going to shut this phone off because this is irritating me with all the sound that's coming out with as well. But yeah, it was very, very windy today, Charlie. I honestly, it was the windiest I've known in a long time, probably 30 years. Well, apparently, according to what they say, apparently it's like. Since remember we had that hurricane from that weather forecaster that said there wasn't going to be a hurricane, but there was a hurricane at the time. 122 mile-an-hour winds, Charlie, recorded in the Isle of Wight. The highest recorded gust on record since these statistics began. And I'm afraid a lot of destruction everywhere else. Trees on the roads falling, some dramatic footage from that. As well, even the O2, the most big, probably one of the most famous buildings in London, was even affected by it. It had half its roof fall off. That is something when the O2 had its roof fall off, which I've never known, Charlie, to have its roof seen falling off and absolutely have its top stripped off. That was a pretty haunting sight to see, nevertheless, Charlie. I was, I have to say, pretty shocked when I first saw it. So I thought it was all going to fall apart. I have to say, Charlie, I'm glad in some ways it was not all of it. It was only a certain segment of it, but it was very worrying anyway, Charlie. I'm glad that it doesn't appear anyone injured inside that building. But unfortunately, Charlie, there was 4 of them, unfortunately, that were affected by the storm. Sadly, died because of the effects of the storm, where it was the waves, the tree falling down, any of that sort of thing, Charlie. A man in his 20s has died. Collision between a car where he's travelling in a tree. Hospitalised. One has been hospitalised, serious injuries. One of the 30s died. A tree fall in the car. A man in 50s died. Debris struck the windscreen of the vehicle. And another one, a council worker in the 60s in Ireland. Storm breeze unfortunately hit him and killed him. So, yeah, all those thoughts and prayers goes to those people who have sadly died in this weather event as well, Charlie. I have to say, though, Charlie, I've seen from what I've seen from my friends today that there has been some little bit damage. Thankfully, where I am, Charlie, thankfully nothing has happened my end. We got quite severe gusts. I was actually really right today because I must admit, I like when I'm watching on TV or something like that, weather events or something. I take amusement into it. When it's real life and if something happens where I am, I actually shut myself in. I actually literally shut the curtains all day because I didn't want to see what was happening outside for all the day. Because I thought at one point I was going to witness a tree blow into my window or anything like that. And thankfully it didn't. But I shut myself in, just shut the world behind me a little bit, just watch TV all day or something like that. Actually, I did watch something today, which I think, which will be my British Star later on, I have to say. You might guess what it is later. I'm sure you hold the thoughts for now what that is, but it was epic watching the TV all day and what I was watching. Oh my goodness, quality broadcast, and that's all I'm going to say for now. But wow, yeah. I feel sorry for those who had to travel. Nevertheless, Charlie, I feel sorry those who have been caught up for it. Those who've been caught, who's basically had their day disrupted. I mean, we look at the. I feel a little bit sorry for poor old Farage. I don't often say that, but he had his car stuck on the road, the car stuck beneath the tree and everything like that. I feel kind of sorry for him a little bit in that way, unfortunately. So. It's been a lot of disruption, Charlie. But it appears the worst is over. It's now moving up northwards. I have to say, be prepared, Scotland, though, because you're going to get a lot of snow on your way. Let's just say that there's going to be a lot of snow coming the way to Scotland now, and all that sort of thing. So think of those in Scotland who are about to be demolished with a nice little white puff of pastry all over their cars.
Yeah, Zach, I have to say, Eunice has caused so much disruption. You got here, PO ferries stopped between Dover and Calais. Dozens of flights were cancelled. As well, the Network Rail cancelled several trains today. Airlines struggled to land at airports. Wind speeds forced both the M4 Prince of Wales Bridge and the M48 Severn Bridge in Wales to close the traffic. Also, the M25 QE2 bridge also shut today as well, disrupting traffic going over Dartford crossing. But yes, as you can see here up the top of the article on GB News here, a man in his 20s was killed in Alton, Hampshire, after a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter collided with a tree on Altham Ollidon Road just before midday. Earlier, a man in Co-Wrexham was also killed by a falling tree. And both the Met Office also issued an ultra-rare red warnings over the impact of extremely strong winds have now elapsed, but Eunice's impact expected to continue. I do expect later on when we do the papers, there will be a lot of headlines regarding Storm Eunice on the papers. We are going to mainly look at tomorrow's papers as well on that. But speaking of headlines now, moving on from that, Russia and Ukraine still continuing to unfold over there. Now, are Russia deciding to launch a false flag here, if you're asking me? Because a kindergarten school had been apparently attacked the other day.
Yeah, well, it looks like, from what the intelligence is saying, Russia are doing what the intelligence are saying, Charlie. And that is launching these sort of... They make out these sort of things that Ukraine are doing, but they're actually not. It's Russia doing it themselves. So there's been some bombings today in one of the Ukraine separatist cities, Charlie. There's been a car explosion today. Now there was that was some sort of car bomb that went off there. Now what the Russians will probably do is they will probably turn it something as Ukraine did, something they might say that Ukraine tried to launch a terrorist attack on us or something like that. That it's a false flag, Charlie. That's a false flag. That's what that they will claim that what's happened, but we know that isn't the case. That, for example, Charlie, this week the Russians lied earlier this week. They claimed that they were removing some of their troops that they put on the borders between Ukraine were leaving because they were doing training exercises, and they were moving them back to base. That's not the case, Charlie. The base is actually closer to the Ukrainian border than where they've been doing. So actually, Charlie, not only they've lied this week about some of the troops turning out, they're actually adding more. I mean, the latest statistic I saw this evening, Charlie, was there's about 190 potentially thousand troops on the border of Ukraine, Charlie. It's That's very right. I should point out, Charlie, President Biden's about to speak in a couple of minutes. Actually, I will obviously speaking to you whilst I have this. I'll have the TV on the background when that happens. But yes, he is about to speak. The intelligence in the next past few days, Charlie, has been getting a bit more rotten, and even more rotten as well. That, Charlie, it's not very good at all. The UK last night said to the Times that they think that Putin has now decided that he's going to invade. It's just a matter of the timings now of when, not if, in their view. And that is a pretty scary thought, Charlie. It could be this weekend that they could invade, but yeah, very, very scary events about to take place, I think, Charlie.
Yeah, and Zach, I have to say, the Kremlin, for me, are having disagreements with Ukraine over apparently joining NATO. They're saying Ukraine shouldn't join NATO. You got the president of Ukraine saying, "I maybe will join NATO." But you've got to look at this. Vladimir Putin doing this, who is, by the way, getting on for 70 years old. It's clear to me that if he was to just do this, it would cause massive problems around the world.
Yeah, that's right, Charlie. I mean, if you think about it, we as a country, US and NATO, can launch sanctions on Russia. In that call, we could put economic sanctions on Russia. The problem with that, Charlie, is that I think one of the reasons the Russians trying to do that is to get their gas, basically, get more of the market of oil and gas and everything like that. It's an easy way for them. But what happens if there does an invasion, we do sanction, is potentially, Charlie, we're looking at, our own gas prices increasing even more because of what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. And if you think about it, Charlie, considering what's happening already with our gas and oil prices and energy prices here, any more deteriorating effect is going to be costly to us as a consumer and an economy, and not just for them as well. I mean, we can sanction all we want Russia; they'll be half happy with what they've achieved, and we're the ones that look stupid as well, by the way, because we're gonna see our energy prices increase even further as well, and that is going to be costly for us as a consumer, Charlie.
Yeah, Zach, my main concern with this is, and my main argument I have to say with this war happened, well, I would say this Russia-Ukraine thing, is that is NATO going to stand up for Ukraine? Is there going to be potentially, will NATO potentially say, right, we've got to put tougher sanctions in? My main problem, Zach, and I'm going to say this now, is that Putin has got one option here. We can't just leave him to get on with what he wants to do and put his agenda on invading Russia. My problem is, if he continues to do this and the US get involved, it could potentially start a Cold War off.
Yeah. The thing is, Charlie, is that Ukraine is not part of NATO. So we can support them by providing them like weapons and military kit if needed to be, but we can't go in and send our troops in there and help them to fight off Russia, for example. If we can't do that, if this invasion was happening in a NATO country, Charlie, we could go in there and fight. We could bring our military in. We could do the rest of the world, the rest of NATO could bring their military in and fight against people like Russia. But Ukraine isn't a member of NATO. So we can't really, Charlie, in that sense. We can provide them assistance and support and military aid and all that sort of thing, but we can't go in there and fight for behalf of them. They have to fight for themselves. We just give them resources to do it. And it may sound like, oh, why can't you do that? Well, that's because, Ukraine's not part of NATO, unfortunately. We can't do that for them. And that's sad, but we have to give them as much support as we can, really, to be fair, Charlie. We need to. And these next 2 days are going to be crucial. We need to get as much aid, military equipment to allow them for defense-wise, and diplomacy needs to continue, Charlie. But it's looking dimmer and dimmer each day as it goes along, Charlie, as well. And as I said, the intelligence is not good at the moment, Charlie. The intelligence is really not good at the moment, and I'm very worried what's about to happen. Potentially could happen as well.
Yeah, I kind of don't want to stoke the headlines, but you remember in 1914 what happened with Franz Ferdinand being shot in Austria? I don't want to, and I know people in the headlines been saying, "Oh, we start World War III and stuff like that." I hope this
That's
isn't going to
Russia's.
happen.
That's Putin's fault. That's Russia's and Putin's fault.
That
If
would
he
be a
start
problem.
that, yeah, that's his own fault for starting it. He may claim that Ukraine's still part of Russia in some ways, but we know that's not. So it's his. If that's the case, Charlie, it's his own fault for starting World War III. If anything, we can all blame Russia. You know that there'll be unanimous agreement on that the Russia will be blamed to start a war if we do get one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen, but I wouldn't keep you updated. It'll probably be a Cold War, I reckon, if that was my best shot. But the situation in Ukraine, I mean, I do fear that we're days away from an invasion, but I hope that diplomacy can be reached. What will Germany do in terms of the negotiations? Will they help? Will Nord Stream 2, potentially that pipeline there, could that also be strengthened further? We don't know, but we're going to keep you updated on that Russia-Ukraine situation as we go along. But moving on now to the culture wars now, the new segment of the show, talking about cancel culture. Now, this week, we're going to the online safety bill now, because the threat to free speech is going to be upon us. The UK government attempts to bring in a new law called the Online Safety Bill, which threatens to potentially, and I quote this now, be serious to social media, in that people who claim that they put misproven theories could be potentially facing the axe on social media. Zach, what do you make of this?
You know what, Charlie? I'm in sort of favour of this. We've been waiting for something like this for a while, actually. I don't mind. Let me just say this from the outset, Charlie. Free speech is important. I do agree free speech is important. That we can speak our minds, we can have an opinion on something, and that we don't cancel each other just because we simply there's a disagreement. I agree about that. Let me agree. The principle about that, I agree. The problem here, Charlie, is that people abuse social media to the point where they are posting inappropriate information, insults to each other, inappropriate content, and the online regulators such as big tech, Silicon Valley, what you want to nickname them as the Conservatives do, such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and all these sites don't regulate, are not doing enough to enforce the regulations, Charlie. So that's why this online safety bill is coming in, so that that the UK government can force fines on these social media companies to enact their rules, or face penalties and fines, even, Charlie. And there's certain segments in that for example, Ofcom is going to be able to regulate the likes of social media and all that sort of thing as well. There, some people criticise this, Charlie. As you know, as you're aware, Charlie, there's been some criticism of this. There's mainly universal support, Charlie, but there is some criticism saying this will stifle free speech, this will censor people, and anything like that. I don't think this is what this is intended to aim, Charlie. I think this is good. We need some more regulation of social media to get rid of harmful content, for example. We definitely need to regulate that. And I think we just need social media companies to enforce rules and everything like that. I don't think it's cancelling a certain side, Charlie, in my opinion. I just think it's the regulating people who abuse, put racist comments, anything like that, or spread misinformation, put harmful content, inappropriate for everything like that. I think it just needs to be enforced, Charlie. I think that's what it needs, enforcement, and we need someone at the top to enforce it. So I know this could be conspiracy saying government spying on whatever you say sort of thing. No, it's just I don't think it's that the case, Charlie. It's just users posted, it's just basically enforcing rules. I think we need more enforcement. We need tough enforcement of rules. I think that's what we need, Charlie. So that's what I think.
But Zach, I'm going to come in now because obviously this segment we're going to have a bit of a debate on this. Now, I look at some famous people like celebrities who have been on social media or have been on various say, broadcasters and have been fired. Now, one of the people that we spoke about in January was Majid Nawaz, who got fired by LBC over COVID-19 booster vaccines. But I have to say this, if you were planning on taking a booster and then you have this thing going around on Twitter that they do more harm than good, and then Twitter says, okay, that, or LBC says, right, you put that on Twitter and you claim that that's basically misinformation on COVID, people then start becoming like, okay, this person either is telling the truth or not telling the truth. And then you have these companies like getting involved and then trying to cancel people for claiming misinformation on COVID. And that's been one of the big areas that social media has been tested for during the pandemic, is this huge growth of cancel culture.
Well, let's look at it from both perspectives from this angle. For Majid Nawaz, people on the let's start from alphabetical letter order. People on the left, like me, for example, Charlie, would say Twitter, people like LBC are getting rid of Majid Nawaz is right because he's spreading misinformation, he's promoting harmful content, he's radicalizing people so that they don't do something because of one person or anything like that, and one person's fault and everything like that. People on the right think if you get rid of Majid Nawaz, this is a free speech issue. This is not anything to do with harmful content or anything or cancel culture. This is actually cancel culture. The people on the right think that this is actually cancel culture. That you're silencing a voice with a different opinion and a different perspective on the things. I'm a sort of person that more believes it on the left, Charlie. I don't think it's necessarily cancel culture. He has a right to voice or anything like that. What I don't think he should have a right to do, Charlie, is spread knowing misinformation and conspiracy theories, because that's what he did. That's why he got sacked, for example, from LBC, because he promoted all this vaccine content, election conspiracy theories as well, and misinformation about the vaccine and COVID in general, right? Okay, which led to the point where even one of his co-presenters started calling him out. Ian Dale from LBC, who by the way, is on the right and is a conservative, called him out because he was promoting misinformation and everything like that. So I'm in the range, Charlie, of that. Okay, you can offer your views. I know I might think you're a div, but you have the right to those views. But then if you want to have a platform, don't put things on there that would harm and radicalize others into thinking, yeah, you're always right and the other person's always wrong, and therefore we're going to use, abuse, and manipulate to make this sound like this is all the truth and everything like that. I'm all for free speech, Charlie. Let me just clear. I'm all for free speech. I just think free speech comes if sometimes goes too far with consequences, and having free speech doesn't give you the right to, doesn't let you off free of consequences for what you sometimes say or anything like that. I'm at the view of that.
I mean, Zach, he all I can say is that Majid Nawaz is actually doing a live stream on Getter, apparently. This new social media page launched by Sebastian Gorka, I believe, who is a former Donald Trump. So it's using that platform.
Hasn't he? I think he's joined their company. I might be wrong. But I read he might have joined their company. Yeah, he does. Yeah. He's done a deal with them. I'll let me get it up, actually. He's done it with Getter. It's a free speech, obviously. It's one of the Sebastian Gorka, who used to work for the Trump campaign. Still works closely with Donald Trump as well. He produced exclusive videos, live streams, and other content about the threat of censorship or cancellation. That's what the deal says. His partnership as well. He's, that's an example where he feels like he's got a bigger platform to voice his opinions than, say, LBC, for example. He had a massive platform anyway, Charlie. There was talks of a contract extension recently with LBC until they decided to get rid of him. I think it's all, I think at the end of the day, he got, LBC had enough with him. He was going to offer a new contract, but they got fed up with him with the conspiracy theories and everything like that. And so he's on Getter now. rather than LBC, but he does now have a platform. So you can't say he's been cancelled because he does have a platform now, rather than being cancelled. If he didn't have a platform, he would have been. You could call it cancelled, but he hasn't been cancelled because he's been given a platform to be given a voice and his opinions.
Yeah, but Zach, my final thing, Zach, before we move on, Joe Rogan's been under scrutiny recently over his podcast, which I think he deleted off Spotify or something over COVID misinformation. It's sort of another thing with this like online safety bill that will threat these big companies like Spotify if that was to happen. I mean, I found this quite weird, to be honest, what happened with Joe Rogan.
I mean, you do have a point. I suppose you do have a point that what you could say is he's been criticised because all the stuff is. I mean, he's not only the COVID misinformation he's been criticised as well, Charlie. It's like racist comments that he's been criticised about as well, and racist comments from the past that he said because he kept using the N-word so often as well, which is totally inappropriate, Charlie. I'm sorry, it's completely inappropriate for him to be saying that sort of thing. So his partnership with Spotify is obviously because the public has reacted in a negative way to what he's been saying. Spotify obviously felt had to react and put in a new set of guidelines. I mean, going back to the point of Charlie, the online safety bill, Charlie, as well. I think you do have a little point here, because let me get up and show you what this online safety bill does. And as you point out here, Charlie, generally threatening or knowingly false messages, it would be a criminal offence, Charlie, if you put something like that. Generally threatening or knowing false messages online, it could be a criminal offence on this new law. And I'm in the range of I would support that, because I think we need to crack down on misinformation and threats. But I also understand there's a free speech element to it as well. I think people need to state when an opinion is opinion, and that keep it as an opinion, not my opinion is a fact. Here we are, because opinions and facts are two different things, Charlie. Opinion is when you have a view on things. A fact is something that's real and something is true. And I think sometimes what, in my opinion, conservatives do too often is state opinions as facts. And I think from both the left and the right do this, Charlie. Let's be honest, both the left and the right do this. Left try to make it come across that they're the ones that are in the right, and therefore the facts are there for the right as well. That's normal, but both sides do it, and it as well. And what? So yeah, 10% of their global turnover social media networks could be fined if they don't basically remove content that are illegal, basically, Charlie. So yeah, you do have a point there in some ways, but I approach this as, yes, let's have free speech, but remove harmful content as well, like that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, Zach, and I have to say I'm very interested to see how this online safety bill gets on in Parliament. Of course, Parliament is back next Monday after the recess. It's going to be interesting to see what Boris Johnson also announces with the Living with COVID strategy. More on that another time. But we're going to move on now to Sports Round, because we're going to give a little bit bigger presence on my show now, Sports Round. We're going to be talking about sports news and dominating. Actually, we'll start with the dominant one, the Winter Olympic Games today. Can I say, yes, we finally have a medal at least. Team GB are through to both the men's and women's curling finals after two pretty huge victories. One victory went down to a deciding leg or a deciding end, which made the women's team very pleased indeed. Zach, what did you make of today's Olympic action in Beijing?
Oh, well, Charlie, it only took us about 2 weeks for us to get a medal, but we're going to get at least two, Charlie, in the curling, because the men's curling, we're going to get at least potentially a silver, and then the women's, we're going to get potentially silver as well, Charlie, because in the women's, incredible job by the women's team, Charlie, because they came from 4-0 down against Japan to win the semi-final of the curlings. What a great job they did there, Charlie. 4-0 down after the first end, and they won at the 11th end at the match. Honestly, Charlie, that is a comeback. Let me just say that as well, Charlie. The men, for example, as well, they won 8-4 over USA. In the men's semi-final, they're going to go to get at least a silver. We're not having. I mean, Great Britain have been that great, Charlie, in this competition so far. We haven't got even any medals, but we're going to get 2. I mean, I'm pleased with that. I mean, we wish we got more, but you know, Great Britain are going to get some medals, Charlie, and I think that's the main thing. I think that's really good to hear. And now we just got to cheer them on to see if we can get the slim chance, Charlie, of getting the gold. And what a job that would be, Charlie, if we do get a gold. That'd be incredible, I think. Absolutely incredible. I have to say, Charlie, that the Winter Olympics has been dominated by other things as well, Charlie, because I was going to mention the figure skating, Charlie, and the situation with Camilla Vanilla, if you know how to pronounce it well.
Vanilla.
Well.
Okay, Camilla Vanilla.
She has been she's been in the controversial end of things, Charlie, because she recently was revealed to have a positive drug test, which she blamed, I think it was a grandfather's medicine or something, mixing with medicines or something like that. She's only 15 years old, and she's good figure skater. Let's just say that, Charlie. She's very good for what she does, but it's revealed that she had a positive test in December that came back positive, and it was only disclosed a few days ago. And she could have won the event yesterday, but she didn't because she had several falls actually, and she finished 4th instead. She got no medal at all, and for all that controversy, that was quite the ending, Charlie. I have to say that was quite the ending to the figure skating. What happened with her? Wow, wasn't the best performance, Charlie. It was, but yeah, this story is going to go on for a bit, I think, Charlie, with her, because especially with the positive drug test caused a worldwide reaction. Whether it's the fact that whether she should have even been taken part after a positive test.
Yeah, Zach, as well. I have to say that. Also, as well, in the other events, I'm just going to go over them now. Men's ice hockey semi-final. The Russian Olympic Committee hold off Sweden. Finland also defeats Slovakia, which means the ROC and Finland will be playing in the gold medal match tomorrow as well. Also, in the 2-woman bob event, which is the 2 women's bobsleigh event I just have up here for you, reigning Olympic champion Jamaica lays 7th overnight, but Laura Nolt leads a German teammate Maria Jamaica after the first day of 2-woman bob. That was at the sliding centre as well. The time that Deborah Levi clocked was a 1 minute 1:04 in the women's 2-woman bob event. That's the bobsleigh, by the way, at the Olympic Sliding Centre in Beijing. Germany have had a clean sweep in that event. Also in Malaysia as well, they got gold in the team relay the other week as well. Also as well, the ski cross took place today as well. That was actually dominated by Switzerland, I think, who got a 1-2 in the ski cross today. That was a huge win for Switzerland as well. Biathlon also dominated by Norway, I think, as well. Plenty of countries dominated it all. But the curling is on tomorrow. The women's and men's gold medal matches will be on tomorrow. I think about 6:30 in the morning. I won't be up for that, unfortunately, but the Olympic Winter Games is going to be on. And I will play you now some highlights of how the Great Britain's men got through into the final of the curling. Have a listen to this.
He was speaking at the United Nations yesterday.
Good. Really important that this gets in here. Now it needs to hold up. You can sweep it once it's past the tee line. So it's a steal of 2 for the US. Even if it hasn't been thrown as well as you would like, these two should be able to take this all the way in. They have worked pretty hard. I think they'll start relaxing a bit now. Let that run in. That's very nicely done. Well, relax everybody. On the scoreboard, it's 3-2 after 3 ends. You can still get their 2 here.
I think you only get a 1 if punches
Because
so then
it
on the
doesn't
yellow.
go anywhere. That's right. The other one sitting on top of it will still count. The second. Right, so has he got this right though? Not much of a gap to cut through. John Schuster trying to catch the edge of that red.
Oh, it is 2. That's a big shot.
So USA back in front for 3. Leeds is 2. At least carry a 1-shot lead into the halfway point. This will travel all the way to the back of the house. Guys are watching it all the way, clean at the moment. Now asking Hammy to sweep, and then Bobby comes in, needs to get this just right at the right angle, and then needs to sit. He's done a brilliant shot there. 5-4 Pippin over USA. Yes, it will be open for Schuster to come in for 1. That's exactly what they want to create. Trying to force 1 here. Great Britain made a very good end, and the big mistakes from the US. Now, Usman needs to ask his sweepers to help here. They like the line.
Here it comes.
They love this. They will absolutely love this. That's a brilliant shot from Bruce. This would be incredible if he could do it, or will Great Britain be into the final? Here it comes, the last stone. John Schuster, the defending champion, watching. Can he manufacture something here? It's just slipping away, and he knows. He pushes that one through, but they're both going to go. Great Britain will contest the gold medal match. A fantastic performance by this British team, who were pushed all the way by the defending champions. And the British women's team rise in the stands with all of the other supporters. And the first time I've seen Bruce Mars and the team show this sort of emotion, and why not? It will be Great Britain versus Sweden in the final. Canada, USA will fight it out for the bronze medal.
Yeah, so Great Britain and Sweden tomorrow will play in the men's gold medal match. The USA will play Sweden for the bronze medal. That's in the men's curling tomorrow in the Water Cube, which used to host aquatics during the 2008 Beijing Summer Olympic Games. Russia's the only city to host both the summer and the winter Olympic Games. Back to Beijing, by the way, actually not Beijing, Russia, China, sorry. China was the only country to host both summer and Olympic winter games. But moving on now to NASCAR now. This weekend we have the big event, the Daytona 500, first event of the season. Today we had the blue-green vacation dual events taking place at Daytona. The final one saw a huge crash for Joey Logano once again. Zach, what did you make of the warm-up events ahead of this weekend's Daytona 500?
Yes, Keselowski won duel 1. Joe Logano crashed in duel 2, Charlie. Very interesting results nevertheless, Charlie, as well. So it was, let me get the results up somewhere. Yes, so the top 5 in both races was Keselowski won in duel race number 1, and Chris Buescher won in duel number 2. So if we look at if we look at the lineup, so that means, I don't know how it fully works, but I think it's the top 2 that don't have to lose their grid positions if they finish at top of qualifying, but then decide to race their way in anyway. So Keselowski and Buescher have got a big advantage now, Charlie, into the 500. As you said, Joe Logano crashed on the final lap, got turned around, Charlie, unfortunately, and so he ended up in the wall, unfortunately, as well. For there was pretty good events, Charlie, nevertheless, I think, as well. It was very exciting. The usual itself, 2 heats, and it was, pretty good from what I saw, Charlie. And now it'll be going on to the 500 now, Charlie. It'll be all on the 500. what's going to happen now. So yeah, that's Sunday at I think we're about 7:30 p.m. UK time as well. But there's the starting grid, Charlie, as you can see, is there because of the race. The dual results could set the grid. Obviously, Larson and Bowman were the top two in qualifying, and therefore they did not need to. Basically win the race to start in their respective positions. They were locked into the front row, and obviously the results of the duels would set the inside and outside rows of the grid, Charlie. And Keselowski won duel 1, therefore he gets to start 3rd. Chris Buescher won duel 2, so therefore gets to start 4th. Cindric was 2nd in his duel. As well as Michael McDowell. Very good results for some of what you call the underdogs, Charlie, in some of the ways. Some of the, the less experienced ones as well. It's a mixed up grid, Charlie, but those at the back have a better chance, just as much chance, I think, of winning the 500 as they are at the front. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of flip-flopping and changing positions, Charlie. It's going to be a very good race, I think, Charlie. I'm really looking forward to it. Nevertheless, Charlie, the truck race is up tonight. I believe qualifying is still ongoing, as I think, as I speak, Charlie. But it's the Xfinity race tomorrow, as well at 10 p.m. UK time, and the 500 is 7:30 UK time as well. Big weekend in NASCAR, one of the biggest weekends of the season, and the first points race with the new next generation car of 2022 as well. So yeah, all looking forward to this one, Charlie. Very much.
Zach, I'm just going to run over some of the results now. Kyle Larson will start on pole tomorrow. Alex Bowman 2nd in a Hendrick Motorsport 1 and 2. Brad Keselowski will start 3rd. Chris Buescher starts 4th. Austin Cindric starts 5th. Good result for him. Michael McDowell, reigning Indy Daytona 500 winner, starts 6th. Ryan Blaney 7th. Harrison Burton, who replaced Matt DiBenedetto down at Wood Brothers in the 21 car, starts 8th. Chase Briscoe starts 9th, and I believe that is Kyle Busch starting 10th. Unfortunately, Denny Hamlin only 30th on the grid. Terrible result for Denny Hamlin. He will need to make amends in the race to have any chance of doing well. In the Xfinity Series, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, the Beef It's What for Dinner 300 takes place. That is the Beef It's What for Dinner 300 takes place tomorrow at 10 o'clock. That's the opening round of the Xfinity Series, and Camping World Truck Series is on at early hours of tomorrow morning. Next Era Energy 250 takes place at Daytona International Speedway on the main oval course, not the road course, the oval circuit, I believe, for them events. But moving on now to Formula One, I think we had a few car launches this weekend. Ferrari launching their car the other day, Mercedes launching their car today, the W13, and also Williams, the FW43. Zach, what did you make of these latest car launches ahead of the new season?
I have to say, Charlie, they were looking good, weren't they? I'm very pleased with them. Let's start off with who should we start off with, Charlie? It's difficult to decide which one to start off with because there's been several car launches which have happened there, I think, as well. Let's look at let me try and go through this site actually and see if we can get it right. Let's start off with Mercedes, Charlie, because it is genuinely the return of the silver arrow. Genuinely, no more black livery, Charlie. It's a proper silver arrow this time. In terms of their looks as well. There it is. An actual silver livery, Charlie, rather than the black livery they've had for the last 2 years as well. I have to say, it looks like the 2019 car in some ways, but obviously there's been a few changes. A bit more green to it, and a bit more the rear ring's green now, I believe, Charlie, as well. A bit more greener than what it used to be as well. And there's obviously a little bit red with the Ineos and everything like that as well. That looks pretty good as well. So return of the silver arrow, Charlie. This is Ferraris. Definitely changed, Charlie. There's less white on there. There's more matte black on there, matte sort of a shady red on there. nice silky car type, very good looking. I think, Charlie. Perhaps one of the best looking ones on the grid, I have to say, Charlie, in terms of colour.
Is Williams, the FW44?
A bit more duller, haven't they? They've gone for more simpler look, haven't they? With the blue and everything like that. It's more simpler, less white, a bit more plain blue, with a little bit of light blue on top of it as well. Very much like a 22 car. Let me just say that first of all, Charlie. AlphaTauri, wow. AlphaTauri, my bad. That they've swapped it around. It's still white and blue, Charlie, but they've swapped the white and the blue over, so there's more blue on there, less white. But that's very stylish, Charlie. The AlphaTauri on there. I do wonder whether it's going to be replaced by a little sponsor on there potentially as well. That AlphaTauri bit, whether they're going to replace it with another sponsor, if anything. Perhaps they've not showed all of it off yet. So yeah, that's the looks there. There's the McLaren. I think that was revealed last week as well, Charlie. But we'll get another look at it. A bit more blue, a bit more orange to it. Looks all right, you have to say. It's okay. There's some of the changes. It looks more like the Monaco livery of last year. There's the Red Bull. There's the Haas. We saw those cars already, I think, as well.
Yeah.
As well. What was the other car that launched last?
Aston
Martin. We saw last week as well. But yeah, so far, I'm liking the looks of the cars, Charlie. Definitely. As well, definitely like the looks of it. Yeah, we've gone through them pretty much. And next, we've only got two more to launch, Charlie, because Alpine are launching theirs, I believe, on Monday, and then 6 days after, Alfa Romeo are launching on the 27th, Charlie, as well. Speaking of F1, Charlie, I think it's important that we get into what's been announced over the last few days. The FIA have announced Michael Massey out of the race director's role. A very significant change, Charlie. Michael Massey out as race director and has been replaced by two race directors, Charlie, for the 23 race season as well. One of them, I believe, Charlie, is the WRC race director. WEC, sorry, World Endurance Championship race director. And there's one as well, I think, I can't remember the names, but there's one as well that does DTM, I believe, used to do DTM as well. But they've changed the management system at the top now, Charlie. So Michael Massey's now out, moves to a different role. They're also going to rewrite the rules on the unlapping behind the safety car. That's going to be looked at as well. And there's going to be some sort of what they call a virtual race control room as well, Charlie, to aid the race director in terms of making decisions and applying the regulations. Lobbying to the race directors has also been banned as well, Charlie. And we're not going to hear them on the TV anymore because they've been scrapped. So, yeah, this is basically, Charlie, I think, in my opinion, to make the race director in control rather than being lobbied and being pig-eared by multiple teams lobbying, saying this should happen, it's just a la, shut up, we don't want to hear it anymore. Yeah, that's how it's basically going to be now. The race director is going to be, not be lobbied unless it's going to be for clarifications. And he will make decisions on the own without being shouted down by team principals and sporting directors and that from now on. But yes, the big news of the last few days: Michael Massey out as race director, replaced by two of them who's going to be alternating races this season. Charlie, I have to say, in my opinion, Charlie, is this good news? Well, if you hate Michael Massey, then yes. It might his position may have been untenable, Charlie, considering what happened in Abu Dhabi. Whether you're a Verstappen Hamilton fan, a lot of people felt that race wasn't really that fair. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot of relief out there for that. Massey's gone.
I have to say, Turkey last year as well, the penalty for Pierre Gasly when he had nowhere to go, 5 seconds, bit harsh from him, I have to say. And also, Eduardo Freitas and Niels Wittig will become joint race directors. Also, as well, Alpine, for their car launch next week, have Otmar Safnauer as the team.
Yes.
He was confirmed literally just today that he will be taking over the reins of Alpine. And Zach, what do you make of this appointment?
Yes, it's interesting. There was rumours going about, Charlie, when before that... during last season, there was rumours about him maybe looking at Alpine and a role at Alpine. because he has been at Aston Martin, left there. He then now has joined Alpine. Interestingly, when he asked about it, he denied that all last year. Turns out the rumours were true after all, Charlie. It's a very interesting appointment. And it's a good appointment, to be fair, Charlie, for Alpine. I think, for them, it's a very good appointment. He's run a previous team before. He might be the key to the secrets to actually advancing their team, Charlie. It'll be very interesting to see, nevertheless, Charlie, as well. So, yeah, I think it's a good appointment for Alpine.
Yeah, good appointment for Alpine. Apple Formula One will be back next month for the first race, but also pre-season testing, I believe, is a couple of weeks' time, I believe. Very, very soon. Barcelona is where the first one will be held, next Bahrain. Moving on now to Conversation Corner. The Apprentice returned yesterday with the latest task, creating your electric car, or your electric driverless vehicle. It was Sophie who led for Team Diverse and Akeem once again for Infinity. And it was a tale of two halves. One was a party pod and the other pod was to do with being pure, if you ask me that question. Be Pure and Star Pod both getting mixed receptions at their launch events. And Zach, in the end, one team, which was Infinity, had an order placed for over 1 million. It was a huge win for them in the end.
Wow, a 1 million order, Charlie. Oh my goodness, that is a success story, Charlie. If you think about it, that was a successful £1 million in orders. That was incredible. I mean, you could have their criticism of the cars. I mean, yeah, there was certainly something to criticise for. Some of the names as well, I just thought a little bit crass. But 1 million orders, whoa, that's good, Charlie. That was very good as well. The one that got fired this week, Charlie, I should point out, was Sophie as well. Sophie was the one, I'm afraid, on the team that ended up getting fired because of the car. Wasn't they're the ones with the pink interior, wasn't they, Charlie? If I rightly remember.
Yeah.
I have to say it's a bit girlish for me. I have to say, looked like something I'll make out at a beauty salon rather than a driverless car or anything like that. The point of driverless cars is to let the driver themselves, Charlie. I have to say the idea of a partyless electric car is a bit dangerous if you think about that, Charlie, because although driverless cars you don't have much input for them, you're not very concentrated on what's on the road that much otherwise as well. In nevertheless, Charlie, but yeah, I must admit it's that car was not very good. It would return the bottom for Ash K, although he was let off by Lord Sugar because he thought he did quite well for what he did, and did actually contribute quite well to the task. So Lord Sugar let him off, and it was between it was Nick
and Sophie.
Nick and Sophie, and Sophie was the one that got the boots, Charlie, and she was gone as well. I think next week, Charlie, they're going to Silverstone, I believe, next week for
Yeah.
They're going to Silverstone. Oh, goodness me, Charlie.
They're creating a motoring. They're creating like a little day out thing.
Corporate away day, including
corporate away day,
racing experience, and a food and drink session, Charlie. Ooh, so that would be something right up my street, Charlie. I have to say, if they get this wrong, my goodness, how could they get this wrong, Charlie? Because there may well be red flags that may be found out, Charlie, in some of the teams' decisions and that. But yeah, Silverstone, a race theme, corporate way day. Oh, that sounds good, Charlie.
It does, and I hope that the teams do work well next week. But obviously, Sophie becomes the 7th candidate to be fired from the process. I have to say the right firing in the end, because she went with the idea of an experience, and then Akshke and Catherine decided, right, we're going to go for a pop party theme. We're going to have karaoke machines. We're going to go fancy with it. And then she said, you went for a different theme.
I couldn't believe it, Charlie. They went from simple to party experience. Like, you're diverging from your original plan. And if you're diverging from the original plan, you don't have a plan, Charlie. You're just making up as you go along. So, yeah, she made it up as you go along, and she got fired.
Yeah, probably the most simplest fine for Lord Sugar. But if I say that, Nick has been on the losing team many times. So, yeah, and actually, again, he had one week he was one, and then he went off. If he gets to the interviews, he's going to get grilled, I think, for being on the losing team the most times. Why would Lord Sugar invest in you? But I hope he can pick himself up. And next week, Silverstone, it will be corporate away days. Now it's time for a review of the papers now. I'm sure a lot of papers will read Storm, Unis as well. But we are going to get the papers up for you. The national newspaper headlines are coming up right now for you. I am just going to get up them for you now. We'll also have a look, if we can, if some of tomorrow's papers also have flanked up on our screens. Let's have a look. Friday's national newspaper headlines are up here. Let's have a look right now. Right, here we go. The Daily Mirror reports that 150,000 homes have been left. Oh, actually, no, we've got a couple of Saturdays. One of Saturday's papers has actually come through.
We
Daily
have
Mirror
actually, yeah.
There's carnage. 150,000 homes been left without power. A storm Eunice swept through the country. Some of Friday's papers of all were Daily Express calling it Storm of the Century. And Not Amused, absurd call to scrap book on the Queen. Daily Star says, this week I shall stay mostly in bed. Eunice chaos as well. The Financial Times reads that President... Oh, interesting headline for Financial Times, going off the storm theme. Russia poised to invade Ukraine within days. Biden warns allies. Daily Telegraph put Joe Biden and Boris Johnson have warned that Russia has begun a false flag attack. Daily Mail says that Storm Eunice, which is identified as a Stingjet storm, the army is on standby with millions of people told to stay indoors. The Eye also goes up with Storm Eunice as well. The Independent has accused Russia of a false flag. The Guardian writes that Russia is on the brink of invading Ukraine as Joe Biden joined NATO allies in warning that shelling may be an attempt to set up a pretext for an incursion, and also Team GB's curlers for medal on ice in their curling success stories. Zach, what do you make to the latest newspaper headlines?
Yeah, let's start off with the newer headlines because some of the Saturday papers actually come out, Charlie. Whilst we're speaking, the Mail. Sorry, let's start with the Mirror. Sorry, first of all, if that's okay. The Mirror have gone for carnage. Not surprising they've gone for Storm Eunice, because of 122 mile-an-hour winds, Charlie. I mean, that's quite astonishing for this day and age, Charlie. 150,000 homes without power. Thankfully, this home is not here as well, Charlie. Well, we've still got power where we are, because if I didn't have power, I wouldn't be speaking to you tonight. And I have no way of communicating with you. The costs are going to be there, Charlie. £500 million. As you said, the O2, Charlie, half its roof got shredded. As you can see, you see that little circle there, Charlie, where the O2 is. You can see some of it that came off. That's a sight to see, Charlie. You've seen the damage there. The thinking of the O2 being damaged by winds. That's one for the ages, I have to say, Charlie. I have to say as well. The Eye gone for the same thing as 122 mile-an-hour storms batter Britain. They talk about the people that have sadly been killed. They're saving 1 million homes to have lost power. Damage to houses and businesses, ripped off O2 roof. Yeah, warnings of ice, wind, heavy rain until Monday. Red alerts to become more frequent because of climate change. They are claiming as well, Charlie. As well, I mean, that's quite serious if you think about it. In that way, the Daily Express goes for Storm of the Century. This is before the storm came in, by the way. Not striving, it is the Storm of the Century because it's the first one in 30 years, Charlie, that's been that serious of a storm as well. That's serious. The Daily Star goes for more comic view of the storm. This week I shall be mostly stay in my bed. I must admit, I felt like that this morning, Charlie, when I was hearing about this, when I was reading about it, because it's surprising, Charlie, because we were on an amber warning when I went to bed last night, and when I woke up, I found we were on a red warning. because of the impact that was coming in.
Mm.
It doesn't feel like a red warning. It felt more like an amber warning most of the time, Charlie. But the damage here hasn't been that bad, to be fair, if you think about it. But yeah, that the Daily Star it was felt a bit like my mood of some sorts, Charlie. The Financial Times has a new front page out, Charlie. I'll just read it off of here. I know it comes up in the previous on change. The FT weekend goes for Putin blames Kiev for escalation and bring forward nuclear drills. That one's from yesterday. I got the one up in front of here, which I'm reading as well. This is obviously his false flag operation that Putin is trying to do as well, to make it sound like that it's Ukraine's fault for what's happening at the moment, when we know it's actually Russia, Charlie, and he's looking for excuse to invade Ukraine, for example. This is some of the stuff is excuses for invading Ukraine. It's not a good excuse. I don't think it's a pathetic excuse, and he's making himself look like a fool, Charlie. The Telegraph, Russia begins false flag attacks. Yes, we've pretty much seen that. We've seen it in Donbass, Charlie, today, where there's been some false flag operations, 600 explosions from what I heard today, Charlie. Interestingly, UK braces for Stingjet storm. Now, the Stingjet, Charlie, is a reference where the bad bit, the serious part, it turns into a sting, and there's a little thing in the middle that turns into a sting and creates severe winds. And yeah, it kind of felt like that in some places. If you were in the Isle of Wight, Charlie, you would have felt that. What was going on there? 122 miles an hour. That's bloody hell. I have to say that's quite something, Charlie. As well, the I go for UK brace for that was yesterday's paper as well. The Independent would have gone for the same thing as well. Russia accused of false flag attacks to Ukraine. Yes, I mean, I expect we're going to have more of this over the weekend. There's the Munich Security Council going on this weekend as well, I should point out, Charlie. As well, there's curling pictures as well. Russia ready to fake calls for Ukraine attack. That's according to Joe Biden, who's yet to speak. He's about to speak in a couple of minutes anyway, Charlie. The Times is going to go round about the same thing as well. But what are they going? White House convinced Putin's about to invade. That was talking about the UK sources, Charlie, that said that President Putin's made up his mind, and they're probably right about it, Charlie, if you think about it. As well, the Mirror has gone for inhumane, and they've gone for slightly different. But this is yesterday's, but they've gone for slightly different ones. Front page as well. They're talking about the elderly resident kicked out in scenarios of private care homes. This is the suffering, unfortunately, of elderly residents who in private care homes, unfortunately, had to be kicked out because of the care homes that had to close, Charlie.
Yeah,
and
there's a lot of problems.
A shocking investigation that the Mirror done. Fair play to them about this, because it's a cruel and horrible way to treat these people, Charlie. There's been a lot of problems in care homes the last few years, and this is one of them. There's a 100-mile killer storm we're talking about, and the Metro goes the same as well, Charlie. As well, red alert, and they go, is this what Putin means about putting out our troops? So yeah, that's the front page. Is mostly focusing on the weather and Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
Today, Charlie.
We're just going to check if there's any more new pages that have come out.
There you go. Times
has just released their paper. Day of Destruction.
Yeah, they've talked today. Day of Destruction. You can see that's a picture. That's another picture you to there, Charlie. It really has been day of destruction. I should point out, Ukraine and Russia are not included in their front page. So that's very interesting. They talk about the weather, Charlie. I should point out as well, Charlie. One thing that hasn't been mentioned yet, I should mention as well, is that Boris Johnson is going to appear on Sunday morning on BBC One on this Sunday, Charlie. He's going to be interviewed by Sophie Walrath. So yeah, I'll be up and watching for that one to see what gaps and interesting information he comes out with on Sunday, because it's his first, I think, national television interview in the morning, live interview of the year, Charlie. So yeah, he'll be interviewed on Sunday morning. I just thought I'd point that out there, to let you know, and all that sort of thing.
And also it'd be his first one since he got his Partygate scandal as well. Also on tomorrow, guys, Anton Deck Saturday Night Takeaway for your weekend at 7 o'clock. The Jeremy Clarkson prank will be on the show tomorrow.
Oh, I can't wait for that.
So that will be amazing, to say the least. But we're going to move on now and do our Great British Star and Red Devil of the week. Now, I'm going to give my Great British Star Award to our Team GB curling team for what they have done, because they have got through to the finals of the Olympic Games. They're going to be getting us a medal. And I have to say, to Ben Moe, I'm sure I've got his name correct, and Eve Muirhead, congratulations to them for steering the ship through to the final. Played really well. And we're playing Sweden, I think, tomorrow in the men's curling. It's going to be very interesting to see whether we get gold. If we get a gold, I'll be so proud. If we get a silver at the same time, I'll still be very pleased for that. My Red Devil of the week, though. If I have to pick a Red Devil of the week, who has it got to be? Oh, there's plenty of people. You know what? I'm going to choose someone this week for my Red Devil who has actually underperformed a lot. I'm going to have to say it's going to be Vladimir Putin as my Red Devil. Because he's accusing Ukraine of apparently saying that if you join NATO, we're going to take self-security on you. And Putin, I've criticised Putin a lot this week because he's just trying to create a false flag. He's trying to be a man who thinks he's intelligent in the West. But yeah, it's I have to say he's my Red Devil of the week. Zach, what do you make of the nominations?
I agree with them, Charlie. The good choices, Charlie. Team GP, we're finally going to get medals, Charlie. So I've been waiting for them, and Putin. Yeah, well, we know about his behaviour. Shall I get to my choices then, Charlie? Obviously this week, my choice for the star. Do you know what, Charlie? I did not know who to pick for this week until I got to today, and I really mean that, Charlie. I'm going to give this week's choice of star to Big Jet TV, Charlie. And I didn't know who to choose until today. Fair play to Big Jet TV for some top quality broadcasting today, Charlie, at Heathrow Airport. Whilst he was in the middle of the storm, he was doing some funny commentary of planes landing at Heathrow Airport, and it was absolutely broadcasting goals, Charlie. It got 200,000 views on YouTube as he was broadcasting live, which is, if you think about it, Charlie, sometimes more than GB News gets. It was an incredible broadcast, absolutely incredible. It was entertaining. It was fun. The guy was brilliant just to listen to. And I know the storm was horrible today, Charlie, but watching a bunch of planes try to land and him doing funny commentary over it, brilliant job. What a guy. And he's today's British star for me, Charlie. What a guy. The Red Devil, Charlie. Well, I'm afraid to say this. I know it sounds lazy. I'm going to give it to the storm that's arrived today. If I'm going to give the bloke that's recording a plane landing the star today, you got to give the idea of the storm coming today. Storm Eunice, Red Devil, Charlie. Because, oh please, I have to admit, Charlie, I decided not to open the curtains today because I was worried what I was going to see outside. Thankfully, thankfully nothing bad happened where I am. It's all good, Charlie. But it was horrible to write about it today. My head went a little bit off the hooks today, so I'm all good though. So it's all good. But yeah, the storm Eunice is the Red Devil this week.
Zach, if you were to give it to a celebrity, who would you get, or a politician, or anyone else, who would you give it to?
Oh, good choice. I've probably gone for you. I've gone for Putin, for the actions he's done this week as well in terms of false flag operations, and I think it's going to get worse and worse, Charlie.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I've just had some news in from the Daily Mirror, which has said huge explosion in Ukraine. You put in false flag fears. Just come up on my.
They're leading with Putin. Interesting. So that one. That's interesting. So that's interesting. as well, Charlie. But yeah, nevertheless, I think the intention is going to go from the weather to Ukraine and Russia in a couple of days' time, Charlie.
Yeah, that's all I can say. And unfortunately, that brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And yes, we will see you again next week for another edition of the Charlie Tolhurst Show. Take care, everyone, and goodbye.